lounging, son.
All right, welcome back to the Comic Lounge. My name is Ryan, and with me today I have another awesome indie cartoonist. I have Nick Burchard, right? Is that how you say it?
Burchard, yeah.
All right, cool. Burchard. I probably should have asked it before I started recording.
No problem.
Usually I do because I don't like butchering people's names. But anyway, so I'm glad to have you on the show. You sent me your book, Dark Wings. Pretty dope, dude.
Yeah, I've been watching your show a lot lately, and the indie spotlights are like my favorite part of what you do. So it was very, very exciting to me to reach out and be like, hey, you want a copy of the book? And you're like, yeah. You want to be interviewed? I was like, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's usually my first thing, right? Like if either I discover something and I reach out to them and I right off the bat, I'll be like, hey, I'd love to have you on the show. How much for like a set? Like, do you have anything like in print that I can pick up or whatever? Sometimes people just send them to me, you know. Sometimes if I love having indie creators like yourself on the channel, and like I said also before we recorded, and I've said this before, you know, that's one of my main goals, and one of the things that kind of keeps me excited about doing my channel is talking to guys like you. You know what I mean? Like you're self-publishing. You're not working for a big publisher, and you're just doing it, and it's inspiring to me. It's inspiring to others, and I hope that more people will discover your stuff and other stuff by checking out my channel and all the stuff like that.
Yeah, thank you so much. And it was really great because with this book, I've got some guest artists in it as well. I'll shout out one of them, Kevin Catalan, Space Knights.
Oh yeah, dude,
you interviewed him.
Yeah,
he is a genius. Oh my gosh,
he's insane. He's fucking young too. It's crazy.
He's become like a really good buddy of mine, and and so I reached out to him pretty much based off your interview with him. I was like, okay, this guy's cool, So I hit him up and I was like, hey, do you want to do some guest art for my dumb vampire book? He was like, yes, absolutely.
That's awesome.
So yeah, that interview, brought us together. So it's
very cool. And I realized I said Dark Wings, but it's Silvertooth is the name of the book. My bad that I said the wrong thing.
You're good, man. Yeah. So the book's called Silvertooth, starring the Dark Wings. It's kind of like a one-shot introduction to the larger Dark Wing story that I'm trying to get going here. It's vampire bikers in a post-apocalyptic world. It's really niche and fun, but I love it.
Yeah, dude. Before we get into the book though, I always ask everybody like how their fandom, I guess, in comics started. Like, what started your love for comic books?
How much time you got? Yeah, so I mean, I started in comics, I guess like how I found them was I was in middle school, and I'm from a really small town in Vermont. So I went to this really small elementary school with like 7 other people, and like half the class was girls. I was like really shy and all of that stuff, when I was in middle school, and because there was nobody to really talk to. Like there were 2 other boys in the class and everything like that. And everybody liked sports, and I was more artistically inclined and everything like that. And so for one of my birthdays when I was a kid, I got Lego Batman, the video game, for Nintendo DS, which puts an age on me. And I kind of got obsessed with that video game, and it kind of got me into the whole Batman mythos and everything. And I was terrified for so long of being a nerd, in middle school. And because this was before like Dark Knight came out, and everybody was like, oh yeah, being a nerd is so great. Not at a rural elementary school in Vermont.
Yeah, I feel you. Definitely when I was growing up, it was not, I just didn't care. I'm like, I like my comic books, and I would bring them to school. I got
there. Yeah. But so it took me a little while. So I was like kind of a closeted nerd all through middle school. And, I was reading all the Batman books I could get my hands on from the local Barnes and Noble. Started with A Serious House on Serious Earth, which blew my mind. And then Nightfall and Court of Owls. And I think that was high school. And so kind of get into high school, and I'm really starting to draw more. I'm starting to just kind of like be more of an artist. And, I'm taking art classes in school, and I'm like, I want to draw comics. This is like totally the coolest thing ever. And because comics are the best, as you know. And so I was in the library one day and I was reading a DC Comics encyclopedia that I took out from the library. And so full on nerd at this point. And my principal walks up to me and he goes, "Oh, hey, I know a lot about this stuff, DC and Marvel and everything. Ask me anything." I'm like, "You're not going to know the answer to my question, old man." And so he says, "Oh yeah, try me." And so I ask him this question, okay, who says Azarath Mitrion Zinthos? And he didn't even like blink. He just said, "Oh, Raven from Teen Titans," but she only says it in the TV show. She doesn't say it in the comics yet. And this guy wound up being Tim Callahan, who writes for the Comics Journal, and he's a columnist and all of that stuff. He's my principal. And so, as a kid who loves comics and, grew up with like no friends who liked comics, I was like, "You're my best friend now." My principal became like my best friend. So I would always be showing Tim like what I was working on and everything like that. And poor him, how awful would that be to have a freshman showing you all their bad, out of proportioned artwork?
I mean, that's cool that you had that relationship with him. Like, I don't often hear stuff like that. That's a pretty cool story.
I'm a weird guy. So yeah, you don't make this book and not be a weird guy. So yeah, he's a big D&D guy, and he's like, "I'm working on a zine for D&D. It's called Crawl Jammer. It's this sci-fi weird thing." And he was running it after school, and he's like, "I really want some artwork for this. I know a bunch of artists, but I want to give you a shot." So I just started illustrating. He was giving me commissions, through the weeks and stuff like that. Just these little pen and ink drawings I was scanning and, giving that to him. And so, that's really how I got into comics, and I've been doing it ever since. And I've fallen in love with the medium. I do filmmaking as well, but you can do things in comics that you can't do on film, which is a cliche to say at this point, but it's
I mean, I get it. It's an unlimited budget. It's only limited by your own imagination. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And I agree. Comic books are, well, obviously I wouldn't have a fucking YouTube channel about comic books if it wasn't like my favorite medium. And I love film, I love television. Like growing up, I always wanted to either be in comic books or be a film director. And eventually, like, I keep getting older. I'm like, man, Hollywood seems, I mean, comic books is hard to get into, but Hollywood just seems so impregnable. Like, I'm just not even going to do that. Like, I love comic books just a little bit more,
Hey man, make a great comic book and somebody might turn it into a movie.
That's true. I said this to you earlier, right? Like, that's why I love talking to you guys, because I feel like there's going to be a moment where I do one of these indie creator spotlights and something just clicks in my head where I'm just like, all right, fuck, I'm just going to do my comic book already, instead of just talking about it and wanting to do it. It's just juggling so many different things. Like, I don't want to give up the YouTube channel. I feel like I would have to like put something on the back burner to focus on doing something like that.
Tie it in with your YouTube channel. Do like live streams of you working on it.
That's not a bad idea. Also, not a bad idea. You got into comics a little bit later than I did. Like, I was really, really young. Like, I was like 5. That's the earliest I can remember having a comic book. And you mentioned some of the books that you got into, right? But who would you say are the biggest influences, whether it be artistically or, the writers as well?
I mean, as a kid who grew up reading Court of Owls and all of that, I can't not say Greg Capullo and Scott Snyder. Definitely Greg Capullo, his art and storytelling is just, I mean, there's a reason he's like one of the greatest of all time, in my opinion.
Oh, I don't disagree with you.
Scott Snyder, he's a great writer. I saw we were commenting on a similar thread about Black Mirror and everything like that.
Were we? Okay, that sounds right.
Yeah, on the Dick Grayson Batman run that he did, and how he was talking about how being so scared of writing Batman so young in his career that he fed that into Dick Grayson, who was just as scared to be Batman. So he really related to him. So he's a big writer that I love to follow. It's gonna sound dumb, but I'm a big Kevin Smith fan.
You know what, dude? I knew I liked you. Man. Kevin Smith is probably,
I love Kevin Smith.
Besides any of my family members, he's my favorite person on this planet. You know, by far. I've met him a few times.
You've met Kevin Smith?
Yeah,
Amazing.
I'll tell you this quick story.
Please,
So
yeah.
he used to have, so obviously he has Secret Stash in New Jersey, right?
Mm.
There was a brief time that he had one in LA, right outside of LA in Westwood by UCLA. So we happened to be down there, and like I had always wanted to go, but like this is probably when I was like, I don't know, maybe I was like 18 or something, right? And we're down there. I'm with my mom, and she's like, "Oh, like you've always wanted to check this out. Let's go." I'm like, "Nah, we don't need to go. It's not that big of a deal. Like I don't even have any money. Like what am I gonna do there?" And she's like,
You went
"Okay,
to Jay and Silent Bob's Secret Stash with your mom. I love it.
And she's like, "Just go." And I was like, "I'll get you something." I'm like, "All right." So I fucking go in there, and I walk in, and Kevin Smith's standing right in the fucking shop, and like obviously, like I'm starstruck. Right? I'm like, I don't even know what to say. And then my mom, embarrassingly, was like, "My son is such a huge fan of your work." And then so then that opened the line, right? Like he talked to me for a bit. I mean, I kind of blanked out on some of it because I was like in shock that I was talking to him. But he signed some stuff for me.
Kev seems like the one guy who genuinely like loves meeting fans.
Oh, for sure. And he's one of the most humble people I think I've ever met. And then like obviously like I've a couple cons, like I stand there and like all his handlers are like, "No, don't sign anything," and he ignores them, and he
absolutely I'm gonna
he
sign
signs
something.
it anyway, you know. So I've seen him there a couple times. And then I was actually there that night that he recorded that stand-up where he had the heart attack. I was at the first show, and then me and my buddy left. And
were you gonna go to the second show?
No. We saw because it was he basically did the same thing twice, right? So it was like he was just doing it twice.
Right.
And so I the next morning that whole thing, like it was all over social media that he had a heart attack. I was like, holy shit. And that was one of the catalysts that kind of got me to start my site, The Comic Lounge, was because I wanted to write about it, like how much he meant to me, how like inspiring he is to me. And so Kevin Smith is like firmly entrenched in like my reasoning for doing a lot of what I do with my channel, my site, what I talk about. I mean, so
absolutely, I think, man. I went and saw him on my birthday in Los Angeles the year before COVID when I lived there. I went to the Scum and Villainy Cantina and I saw Fat Man Beyond with him and Mark Bernardin. And yeah, it was on my birthday, and I had just quit a job that I didn't love. And I was like, I need to laugh. So I went and I saw Kevin, and I was like, it's my birthday. I gotta do something fun, because like I was all alone in LA. And so I had just turned 21, and I remember walking into the bar, and like the lady who's at the bar is like, "Oh, what a baby. Oh, he just turned 21, you know?" Yeah. And so I showed them my ID, and they were like, "Yeah, go on. We don't even care." So yeah. And that's like one of my favorite memories. And I've been a fan of Kevin pretty much. I mean, I was a fan before, but now I'm like, whatever he does, I'll support it.
Oh, I know.
Because I know he's coming at it with passion.
Oh, always, dude. And yeah, like I said, he's super inspirational, just like how he carries himself in life. You know, his outlook on life too. Like I've read all his books that he's written. You know, I think it's tough shit advice from a fat slob or something like that.
Who did good.
Yeah. Like that's one of my favorite books. But anyways, let's I could talk about Kevin Smith for hours.
Me
but
too.
let's get back to you. So what kind of, this is your first book, right?
I did kind of like a zine before, but that was years ago. This is really kind of my first professional kind of go at a book. You know, I laid it all out. I wasn't just freehanding it. And I was like, I love these characters so much. I need to treat them with the respect they deserve. It's so weird to be talking about this book, because I feel like I'm talking about it, and it's not about me. You know, that's not why I do this. I do this because I love the characters I create, and I love the world, and I love just doing this. And so it feels weird to talk about it because it's not about me. I'm like, well, why don't you ask them what they think of the book? You know, so I really wanted to take this seriously and really go for an actual book, because it's funny that we were talking about the heart attack with Kevin Smith, because I had been thinking about that a lot lately. Is it's like, okay, you know, I'm no longer in LA, you know, I'm not going to be pitching this as a script anytime soon. I'm like, what's stopping me from doing this? And it's usually always been, oh, you know, I'm not that great of an artist. And it's like, okay, well, make yourself a greater artist and give this project what it deserves. And so that's really where I was coming at this book. And we were talking about like influences and all of that. And I was really going for kind of like an 80s, 90s anime aesthetic. So typically when I draw, I'll have lots of cross hatching and, you know, really interesting ink lines, but I really wanted this to feel almost storyboard like. So I kept the shading very minimal, just flat colors with some cell shading on top of it, because I wanted it to have that kind of pulpy, nostalgic vibe. And so an artist that I was really referencing a lot was Becky Cloonan.
Oh, I love her stuff. Yeah.
She's amazing. She's a really talented artist. And, you know, as a person who loves My Chemical Romance and Gerard Way and all of that stuff, is very cool to be like, oh yeah, Becky Cloonan, totally. I want to give her a copy of this actually someday and be like,
you should send her a copy. Yeah. Definitely send her a copy. She's awesome.
Yeah. You've talked to her, right?
I have talked to her. I talked to her and Michael Conrad when they were doing Wonder Woman. Right before they were taking over Wonder Woman is when I had them on the show. Yeah.
How good is Batgirls?
I've only read the first issue, to be honest.
I like it. I think the art is so fun.
I love the art. I mean, I didn't dislike the book. I read so much, and whatever new books, like anytime a #1 comes out, we take it home to read. Like the owner wants us to be knowledgeable of everything new coming out. So like I would read so much that I would forget issue to issue some of the books I was reading, because I was just it was so much different stuff. Like I can read a bunch of graphic novels, that's one thing, but when reading a bunch of single issues all the time, it's like, fuck, I don't remember even what happened in this last issue.
You might be able to answer this question that I've had in the back of my head for a long time. How many comics are out right now? Like not counting graphic novels, titles.
I mean,
or as a creator, I shouldn't hear this.
Easily. I mean, this isn't even everything, right? Like I'll just go based on lines, right? Like when I was
Image,
doing,
Marvel,
when,
DC.
when I was doing polls, right? We would lay all the books out for the polls, and we would separate, like it would be sometimes 5 covers for a book, right? So like some weeks there's like 160 lines, which means there's 160 different comic books, including variants, in that week. So I would say comfortably at least like 300 different titles. There's probably more. There's probably more. Yeah. Like it's hard to judge because there's so many variant covers, right? And like maybe that's just the books we get, because we don't get every single book. Like if you look in the back of a Diamond catalog, there's so many small publishers, but some of those we only get for subs. We don't necessarily carry it on the shelf because you only have so much shelf space. You know?
Oh yeah, that was going to be my next question. Is I was like, so are there certain books that you don't display, or are there certain books that just stay in the back and you're just like, hey, there's this back here if you want to read it, you know?
No, in that sense, everything we buy is going to be on the shelf, but will it stay front and center? No, it may get buried by another book like maybe even the next week, right? Like if it's a small title in the indie section, because we have Marvel on one wall, then we have DC, we have Image, Boom has a small section, and then like Dark Horse and the rest of the indies are over there, right? But there's only so much space. So it's like if there's only like one copy of something, and then like you have to think how many issues are you going to continue to get for the wall? #1s, you're always going to go higher, and then you're going to taper down. Eventually, some books just become subscription only. So only the people that sub to it are we going to get copies for. We're not going to even have it on the wall. Which
it almost makes you wonder, just as like a small press publisher, you know, I've been debating on doing like this as more of a web comic and then almost crowdfunding like a graphic novel version of it once I get more issues and all of that, because I feel like as an independent publisher, it would almost be smarter to have a graphic novel just on the shelf as opposed to trying to compete with all those individual issues that come out.
I agree. I also think crowdfunding, I just talked to somebody the other day who's had 15 successful Kickstarters.
Is that Ghost
And-
Agents?
No.
Those guys are killing it.
Yeah, no, this is only their third. But this one guy, he's done 3 different books, I think, maybe 4. He's got one live right now, and he's now completely making a living doing comic books. And he just got picked up for the collection of his Kickstarter that he did for a book, and it's going to be published through Dark Horse. So like that's another avenue, right? Like you do Kickstarters, you show that you have an audience, and then you can option it to a publisher. Like, oh look, I've done this many single issues, I have enough for a trade paperback, and then they carry it through there.
Here's
and then
the audience.
You reach a whole new audience too, right? Like you.
Oh yeah.
Like you see, oh, it's Dark Horse. Oh, I know that publisher. Oh, let me check this out. Right. There's a lot of different avenues in terms of how to get comics. I think crowdfunding is definitely one of the best.
Well, because I crowdfunded my first short film that I directed last year, the uncredited. We crowdfunded that on Seed and Spark, which is not a Kickstarter. It's a crowdfunding page specifically for filmmakers and films and all of that. And I couldn't believe the generosity and like the people who just liked the project, and that's it. Like, I don't need you to like me. Like, I don't need you to, do anything. I want you to want this project as much as I want it.
Yeah.
And that's important. It's finding the people that want your project.
And that's also what's really cool about like self-publishing, right? And like crowdfunding is that you get that connection with the people. People are willing to spend, I am willing to spend more on a comic for Kickstarter than I probably would in a shop. I'm not going to probably drop 10, 15 bucks on a single issue, but I will for somebody that's trying to get their work out there, that's trying to do something on their own, because I understand the work that it entails. Shipping comic books sucks. It is not the business, dude. When I was at the shop and I did some packing too, and I have an eBay store, and sometimes I'll purge and I'll sell stuff online. It's annoying. It is very annoying, and it is very time consuming. So the fact that people like you or anybody else that does this for themselves and is not through a distributor, I'm willing to spend more for that. And I think that a lot more people now than maybe 5 years ago feel the same way. But in terms of, okay, now let's talk more about your book. It's all good. So going back to Silvertooth, like, what are your long-term goals with it, and what's next for the book?
Well, so going back to what we were talking about with filmmaking and how that can impact comics and how it can impact other things as well, is I had originally written this as a grindhouse horror film script to kind of almost act as a proof of concept to a larger series that I wanted to do. I've got 13 issues of this written on script. So I figured, okay, start small. We'll do something to introduce everybody. So I had originally wanted to do this as a short film, and I brought this to one of my collaborators who I did my last film on, and he goes, absolutely no way, we can't afford this. So I said, okay, cool. I'm going to do it as a comic then, which I was already kind of hoping I was going to have to do anyways, because, it's such a visual story and the characters are so, interesting to look at and all of that. And the action is fun. So the idea of doing it as a comic was something I was like secretly hoping I could always do. So it was kind of one of those things where it's like, okay, we can't afford to do it right now. Well then, fuck it. That's my time to start it. So last October, I know this isn't the Marvel method, but I've heard that most comic book creators try to do a page a day. They either pencil it and then it gets sent off to the inker and all of that stuff. So I was penciling a page a day, and then I would ink it, color it, and if I could pencil and ink in one day, that would be a great day for me. So I had a 30-page book in about a month, and then I tagged along with an original pitch that we did years ago for the larger series, and they kind of played nice with each other. I put some guest artists in there and everything, and it just kind of became this love letter to a series that I just wanted to share with people. So that doing it as a comic was the best way to do that. Did I answer your question?
Well, I was asking what's next for the book? Like, what are your plans moving forward?
At the moment, I would really love to dive into the larger story. So, um, at the moment, I don't necessarily have a plan. I'm more just curious to see what people think of the book. That's why, I'm working on promoting it and everything is I want to get this one out there and, test the market and all of that, because, like a lot of young creators have got a lot of ideas. So this is
For sure.
something that I love, the most, but, I've got a lot of ideas as well. And so, yeah, people can find it on my portfolio site, tinyvikingdesigns.com. I've got a store there, and you can buy signed versions. You can buy a version with a sketch, and I'll draw a nice little picture for you. And then you can also get to the link on my Instagram, which is also Tiny Viking Designs.
All right, cool, man. And you said you have other ideas. Do you have anything else that you're working on, or?
Yeah, so the film project that I just did, the uncredited, you can watch the trailer on my YouTube channel with Tiny Viking Productions. It's a thriller movie that we shot in a cabin in the woods, which is really classic and fun. It's very 80s inspired, about a group of friends watching a horror movie. And so that's the one that is out right now. You can go take a look at that. It played all over the world at film festivals, and then we're working on crowdfunding our next short film at the moment.
Cool. Any more comics on the way?
Working on comics every day on my Instagram. So lots of illustrations, little web comics, everything like that. Just any dumb idea that pops into my head, I like to draw it.
Awesome, dude. All right. Well, I want to thank you again for, chatting with me today. It was a blast.
Yeah.
And before I let you go, you already kind of shared where everybody can find you, so I'll drop those links down below. But before I let you go, you got any recommendations? Anything you've checked out recently that you wanna shout out?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, absolutely. Did you ever read? This is going to be such a messed up recommendation, but did you ever read? Did you hear what Eddie Gein done? It's Eric Powell.
Eric Powell. I haven't read it. Is it really good?
I couldn't stop reading it. It's so horrible. Like the stuff, like the detail they go into is just so messed up. And I'm working through Akira right now. I've never read the full thing. So I'm loving that. I've been going along with the kayfabe videos that Ed and Jim have been doing as well with that. So, always read Akira. Read Ed Gein at your own risk, because it's really dark. And yeah, I would say that's the one I would recommend at the moment. That's the one I'm reading right now.
All right,
the one that I read most recently.
Awesome, dude. And
yeah,
again, thank you for joining me today. Everybody check out Nick's stuff. I'll drop all the links down for the book and where you can find them online. And yeah, dude, definitely want to do this with you again in the future. Next time you got something you want to promote.
I do have something, if I could just throw this out there.
Go ahead, plug it. Yeah.
So yeah, maybe I'm collaborating with Kevin Anthony Catalan on his next Space Knights book. I wrote a short story for it that he's going to be illustrating. It was really, really exciting to write something in someone else's universe, and then to have him come back and be like, okay, this works, but we got to change the name of this person, or we got to change like what they're wearing or something like that. So that was a really, really fun experience, and that's in the works right now. And he's
very cool.
Awesome.
He is awesome, man. Well, again, thank you so much, and we'll definitely do this again sometime in the future.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Of course.